Canva has recently changed the game with their completely free software called Affinity Studio. They promised that it will be free forever. They said that Canva has done so well that they can afford to give designers true creative freedom. But there's one feature in Affinity Studio that is paid, and that's Canva AI. So you might be a new Affinity Studio user and wondering if this Canva AI suite of tools is worth your hard-earned cash. Well, look no further. In this video, we will walk through every single available Canva AI feature and determine which ones are worth it and which ones are a bust. Okay, so this is the Canva AI section, which you can find on the top here. If you switch between vector, pixel, layout, you'll find Canva AI as the one on the furthest to the right. So once you click that, you'll be greeted with this panel, and on the left here, you can see that there's a suite of tools. So if we make a start straight away with the first one, and that's the object selection tool, and it says that it uses machine learning to determine objects and make a more accurate object selection. It's basically the one on Photoshop with steroids. So I'm going to drag and drop this image. So what I'm going to do for this image is remove the background. To do this, I'm going to try to use the object selection tool, and you can see right away when you hover over it, you get this selection feature for the sky. And then you can just remove that, or you can mask it out. Another paid AI feature is if you go to pixel and then remove background, it should determine what the background is and then remove it building on that. So now we can see how accurate it is, but it missed out these blue bits of sky on the background here, but it might have thought that these are glass. Let's try the object removal tool with this, and it's a more sophisticated image. So let's see what it kind of understands. So it understood the ceiling straight away, and then these elements on the wall. So I would say this tool is actually quite impressive for understanding the objects in a picture and then selecting them to a high quality. Overall though, removing backgrounds works really well. Okay, next we're going to try the Generative Expand tool. So for that I have this very tricky illustration of a coastal setting. For Generative Expand tool, it says it increases the size of the composition using generative AI. So what I'm going to do is max out this page with this illustration, and I'm going to then pick out this tool, and then I'm going to expand it to the left and to the right. And with Canva AI, you can pick from 1 to 8 counts of options that you'd like to pick. So I would, in this example, and for every example moving forward, I want it to create 3 counts of alternatives that I can pick from. And I'm going to click on expand. And for 3 images, here are the results. For the first one, it's a complete bust. It just created a frame that it treated it like almost like a painting. The second one, it expanded it to a better standard when it added more trees, more shrubs here, and it completed the building. The third one, it gave me even more, so more palm trees, more shrubs, and it completed the building quite well as well. So I would say for this one, it's a hit or miss, but it worked 2 out of 3 times. Okay, next is the Generative Fill tool. This is available on Adobe, and I showed that in one of my videos, and it is really, really bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this image of the kitchen. I'm going to expand it, and I'm going to ask Generative AI to maybe fill up this space with people standing having coffee. And then I'm going to say make 3 iterations please, if you don't mind, and then I'm going to click on apply. So we have these people that are for some reason completely masked up. So not sure why they're not wearing masks, but that's our first iteration. Second iteration are a bunch of people as well, that they all for some reason wearing very similar shoes, but maybe believable. This one I would say is by far the more believable one, but I would say there's an issue with the scale because this person I think looks slightly bigger than what they should be. So if I try to scale them down, yeah, it didn't crop out the people, so it makes it just as an overlay for the existing. I would say this kind of works 50% of the time. Not much better than Adobe Firefly if you tried that. Next is the Generative Edit tool, and this tool promises to make edits to any elements in a composition using generative AI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to again pick my kitchen render. It's made with AI. and then I'm going to ask it to edit this image to make it into a winter atmosphere, replace the stools, and put a fireplace somewhere. I'm going to click on edit. So this one doesn't give you options, it just gives you one. But for this one, it seems like it made it snow inside the building, so it didn't understand the inside-outside relationship. It did add a fireplace, but that's not the interior fireplace that I was hoping it would make. But also did not remove the bar stool. So in terms of making an atmosphere, it did do that, but the understanding of the context is not there yet. Let's try it with this image. So I'm going to ask Generative Edit to add a person climbing the wall. And it made a person climbing the wall, but again, it doesn't understand scale quite well. And there's something wrong with their hands and arms, which we're now used to it at this point of generative AI. So very hit or miss for the generative edit. Next is Portrait Blur Tool. This creates 3D depth of field effects using machine learning. So I'm going to drag and drop the image of this architect, again featuring in one of my previous videos, and I'm going to ask it to do the portrait blur. And now what it's probably done is that it's understood the components of the image. So what I'm going to do is try to look at the radius, and now it's a bigger radius, and I'm going to play with the focal distance until it sees my architect. And you can see that I can also interplay the blur smoothness. If you want to see a bit of a before and after, you can click on this icon here, and then you can see what it's done. So if you look at the background, it's more blurry now that we added the portrait. I'll try it again for this image. So I'm going to also click on the portrait blur and play with the radius and then the focal distance. And I would say it's also understanding it well. This works quite well for me, but I'm not a photographer, so I don't know how well it works on a professional setting, but I would say it's working for what I wanted to do. So I think this is a good tool. So next is the portrait lighting tool. It lights portrait images in 3D using machine learning. So what I'm going to do is drag and drop an image that is a portrait, again, AI generated. I'm going to click on the portrait light tool. And this way you can manipulate the lighting around that portrait. And you can see, for example, if I want to add light coming through here, and it might be a spotlight, for example, and the radius for that would be like this potentially. And then I maybe want it to rotate this way, and you can see it kind of changes the highlights of the image, and because it understands the topography of the face of that character. And you can change the color of that. If it's red, a red spotlight, and I think if we choose it as red, actually we can see how well it works and how well it understands topography. So for the purposes of photo editing and light touches on photographs, this works quite well. Again, not a photographer, but from my perspective, it's working really, really well. Now that we already have a black and white portrait, we can test out the next tool, which is the Colorize tool. It turns black and white pixel layers into full color using machine learning. So all you have to do is just literally just click it, and then select your layer, and click on apply. And it tries to color out the picture building on what it thinks. So you can see there's some issues here with the color of the ear, but generally it interpreted the color of the hair quite well and the color of the skin quite well. Let's try it out with something that is maybe more difficult, maybe with a busier background. So I'm going to test it out with this image, and I'm going to click on the Colorize tool. And that also interpreted the color of the hair quite well and the skin. And also it gave some color to the background. I think it did a better job at this one than the one before. You can edit the saturation and the temperature. Let's give it one final test. And this one has some elements in the background, so let's see how it interprets that as well. So it gave cars some color, it gave the person some color, but it just looks like a vintage image, or that there's some older style happening in the image. So the Colorize tool works, but don't expect a lot of accuracy. Okay, so the next tool is the super resolution tool, which means it increases resolution of pixel layers using machine learning. For this one, I have this image that I took back in 2010. So let's see how well it does. So I'm going to select that layer and go to super resolution tool. That took so long to make. But now we have this vertical line that we can slide to see the before and after. So let's zoom into these faces to see how well it did in trying to extrapolate these pixels. So you can see here on the right is the before and on the left is the after. So it did such a good job in adding details. So now this umbrella looks better. There's more definition for the sofa. But for the faces, obviously it was not going to guess the shape of the face. So it just left it as blank. But obviously it's still so much better than what it was before. So I would say this tool works really well. Just know that it's not going to add a lot of details if you don't have enough details to begin with, which is the example of the face right here. Okay, so the last tool we're going to talk about is the Select Sample Depth tool. This creates a pixel selection based on the depth of the image using machine learning. So for example, I'm going to drag and drop this image here. And then using this tool is going to understand what is on the near end of the camera and what is on the far end of the camera, and what are the objects in between. So I have this slider here, and if I adjust it, it's going to only select the objects that are further the more that I move the slider around. So you can see that it very well understands the objects that are closer to the camera and the objects that are further. So it's covering the grass first, and then these trees, and then the building, and then the trees in the background, and then the sky. So it understands that quite well and makes a really good selection out of it. And with this, you can delete if you need, or you can change the colors of things that are closer or on the farther end. This tool also works really, really well. And there you have it. These are the tools that are available for Canva AI. Some of them are hit or miss, and some of them work really well, as expected with any AI feature at this point. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. This is for Freddy's sake. Don't look at me like that, Freddy. They are going to subscribe. Promise. I'll see you in the next one.